What's the most important rule when you're doing, any type of painting on a little boat or something like this? Don't. Hi, I'm Joe, and welcome to Motor City Boat Werks. Let's get to work. Welcome back to my channel. One of the questions I often get is folks want to know what can they do to transform their little sailboat restoration project into something, that looks a little bit better than maybe it did after 20 or 30 years of hard use. What's the easiest, the simplest, the most effective way to kind of transform a little sailboat into something better than it once was? Well, we all know about maybe painting the hull of the boat, or perhaps redoing some of the bright work and really making the wood sexy. But one of the things that people often forget is redoing the non-skid on their sailboat. It's a way to really cosmetically make the boat look a lot different and to add a little bit of safety and make it something special. This episode's gonna be all about doing the non-skid on the Skipper 20 sailboat. I suppose one of the questions is, how do you know whether or not you need to do something to your non-skid to kind of make it better or give it more traction? And there's a couple of things that you need to look at. If you have an old boat and it's got some sort of molded fiberglass non-skid, the first thing is take your fingernails and kind of run it across the surface of the non-skid. And if there's any sort of grab or there's any sort of depth in texture, that's going to tell you right away that your non-skid is probably still good. Another way to tell if your non-skid is still viable is, if it's collecting dirt, if it's still catching dirt in the grooves and the textured surface, that's a sign that the non-skid's still good, because that's what it's supposed to be doing. You can clean all that up. I've talked about in one of the other episodes using a pneumatic type of scouring pad to get in there and kind of get everything clean. If it's retaining dirt, that means the non-skid's still good. The third way you can tell if your non-skid's good is if there's an edge, an actual edge between the non-skid itself and where the rest of the deck is. And if that edge stands proud, a 1/16 of an inch or more, you've still got good non-skid. It's only when that's worn down smooth and there's very little transition between the normal deck and, say, the non-skid, that you really need to be concerned. Think about adding some type of aftermarket product or texture to the surface. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking that they've got to do some sort of non-skid treatment to their old boat restoration project. They feel like, it's got to feel like a coarse sandpaper or be something that, is super tacky. That's really not the case. The boats, when they came from the factory, the decks were all fiberglass gel coat, and the non-skid texture was just a raised surface instead of some, smooth area on the boat. So unless that's worn down and it's completely smooth, like a baby's bottom, there's no reason to do much more to the non-skid. You can just get away with putting a light coat of paint on the surface. So in one of my earlier videos, I talk about your various options for non-skid. You're going to want to check that out. There's a couple different types of non-skid, some different things you could choose from, and they all have a different price point and difficulty level and basically durability over time. So be sure to check that out. What I'm going to be doing on this boat is just painting the deck. The non-skid is in very good condition. I think it'll look pretty good just having the non-skid kind of painted, maybe a slightly contrasting color from the color of the deck. I'm not doing a high contrast. I'm not doing a very dark color. I just want something that kind of sets the non-skid a little bit apart from what the deck looks like. Hopefully this will come out okay. If you watch my channel, you already know Motor City Boat Werks has no sponsors. I get no compensation from any of the products or the companies that I talk about on my YouTube channel. I do put links in the show description for some of the items that I use if you want to try and find them. Amazon does pay a small commission if you use those links. All right, today we've got a little bit of weather window. The weather's pretty good, and hopefully it's not going to rain. So we're going to try and get this done very quick. We're going to start by doing some masking. We've got to tape off all of the non-skid area so that we have a really good edge when we roll everything out. This part of the non-skid process, this is the most work. It takes the longest. It's very tedious, and you will be tempted to maybe just do half and half over a couple of days. Don't do that. Tape everything off one shot and then roll everything on the same day. You'll be surprised how fast the project goes. So we talked about this before. If you're going to be doing this type of project, you got to use the yellow tape. That's this right here. It comes from 3M. It comes in a couple different sizes. I recommend you get the 1-inch, and then you also want to have some 2-inch on hand. You need both sizes because you're going to use them for different purposes. This works very well for masking off hardware and things like that to have a little higher profile. 1-inch or less works very well for getting between the open spaces on the non-skid so that you can get a really nice line, and it kind of reduces your work. One of the reasons I like this 3M yellow tape is that you can get 7 to 10 days of use out of it before it starts to shred or end up sticking to the deck. It goes down and it pulls up very, very clean. The whole idea behind the masking is to put the tape down so you create a nice clean edge, a transition between the deck and where the non-skid stands proud. I talked about this before in the episode where I was painting the deck. It's important to really make sure your tape is sticking, that your edge is really adhering very well to the deck. If you don't do that, you will run the risk that your paint will get up underneath the tape. Your edge won't look clean. Most non-skid has rounded corners, so you're going to need to follow that around. Avoid trying to use one piece of tape to do that. What you need to do is have multiple pieces of tape kind of working its way around a corner. That's what actually makes up the curve. Tape everything that you don't want to get paint so you have a very nice edge. If there's any hardware or hatches that are in the non-skid area, you got to tape the edges of those also. All right, I think this is looking pretty good here. It took about 2 hours to tape everything off for the non-skid. We ended up going through one roll of 2-inch tape, one roll of 1-inch tape, and I think we're ready now to go ahead and put down some paint. The deck is painted in what's called oyster white, Rust-Oleum topside, marine topside, oyster white. And this non-skid color is a color called sand beige, and they're very similar. One's a little more brown. Boy, there's not much difference there, is there, right? This one is slightly darker, but man, not by much. Okay. When I do my non-skid, I don't like there to be, sometimes I don't like there to be too much of a contrast, especially when you have a smaller boat. Bigger boat, it's okay to have a high contrast. But this way everything will look pretty nice. 1 quart will be enough to do this. I always debate whether, I should paint the non-skid or whatever, and I just think it makes the boat look a little more complete when it's all done. It makes the deck really kind of stand out, so it's worth the extra effort. Even when the color is very, very close like this, I think it'll give it a nice look. What's the most important rule? What's the most important rule when you're doing, any type of painting on a little boat or something like this? Don't try and remove any bugs or debris while you're painting. Don't do it. Don't touch it. Just leave it alone. Let everything dry. If something sticks on the surface, don't worry about it. You can come back later on, very carefully remove it, and do a simple touch-up. If you take it off now, you run the risk of smearing some organic material or something into the paint, and then you got a real nightmare trying to get it clean because it's all contaminated. Just don't touch it. Come back and clean it, fix it later on. All right, we're on the last stages of painting the deck. I'm painting inside the cockpit now, and the biggest hassle is just doing the tape. Once you get the tape down, the painting goes very, very fast, and we're lucky these two colors match very close. So you know, we get really good coverage from like one coating. It looks great. So it's just slightly darker than the oyster white, and I think it's going to be a nice contrast. It'll look good, and it should look kind of classic. Hopefully we'll see what happens here. All right, it's a new day, and we're gonna pull up the tape here for the non-skid. If we're lucky, we'll have a moment of completion, and we can call this project done. Let's get to work and get this off of here. Ooh, that looks good. Nice. I don't know if you can, I don't know if it'll translate to, you know, video, but there's a definite difference in the color. It's very subtle. It looks really good in person. So you may not be able to see it online, but trust me, it looks good. So I know some of you are probably concerned about the white hatches. What are you gonna do with the white hatches? Do you paint them? You don't paint these hatches, and it's because this material is plastic and it will contract and expand based on the temperature. You'll never get paint to adhere to it properly. Not to mention, it will wear off the surface here as you're sitting on the benches back here. So what you have to do is just leave it the way it is. It's white, that's the way it looks. If you don't like the way it looks, what you do is you get yourself a cushion that goes across here. Then you got something to protect your bum, and it looks fantastic. It's a small detail, but I just think doing the non-skid on your boat really makes a difference. It's one of those things that just makes it look a little bit special. I hope you agree with me. If you like it, leave a comment below. Be sure to subscribe. We're going to call this project completed. If you're going to be working on your non-skid on your boat restoration project, well, check out my other video where I talk about all the details of doing a non-skid project. I go into the various options, and I talk about my personal favorite, soft sand non-skid. I used it on the Ep128 pocket trawler. You're going to want to check it out. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you next time. Stay motivated.